It's about that time. Welcome to the Word of the Day. Today we are visiting Ruth, the lineage of a king. When we last spoke, the last judge of Israel, Samson, was deceived by Delilah of the Philistines, who pressed him relentlessly, questioning him in order to find out the source of Samson's great strength, so the Philistines could seize him. So Samson told Delilah, "No razor has ever been used on my head, because I have been a Nazarite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." When Delilah saw that he told her everything, she called for the rulers of the Philistines and said, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with the silver in their hands. After laying Samson on her lap and waiting for him to go to sleep, she called for someone to shave off the 7 locks of his hair, and his strength left him. Then she called Samson and said, "Samson, the Philistines are upon us." He woke up from his sleep and thought, "I'll go out as before and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. But the hair on his head began to grow back again. Now the rulers of the Philistines assembled to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon their god, and to celebrate, saying, "Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands." When the people saw him, they praised their God, saying, "Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands, the one that laid waste our land and multiplied our slain." While they were in high spirits, they shouted, "Bring out Samson to entertain us." So they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. When they stood him among the pillars, Samson said to the servant who led him around by hand, "Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so that I may lean against them." Now the temple was crowded with people, men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there. On the roof were about 3,000 men and women watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more. Let me, with one blow, get revenge on the Philistines for my eyes." Then Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood. Bracing himself against them, his right hand on one and his left hand on the other, Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines, Lord." Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he was living. Then his brothers and his whole family went down to get his body. They brought him back and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of Manoah his father. He had led Israel 20 years. This is Judges 16. Now during the time when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and his 2 sons, went to live in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. Their sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were of the clan of the Ephraimite from Bethlehem, Judah. And they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. Her sons married women from Moab. Their wives were named Orpah, and the other was named Ruth. Orpah married Chilion, and Ruth married Mahlon. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died. So Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Now, when Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord God had come to the aid of his people Israel by providing food for them during the famine, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take her back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi thought about it to herself and said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with another husband." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, "We will go with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons? Who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand had turned against me." At this they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth refused and clung to her mother-in-law. She refused to leave Naomi. "Look," said Naomi, "Orpah is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth replied, "Don't make me go. Don't make me leave you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people shall be my people, and your God shall be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, even if it is hard on me, even if death separates you and me." Ruth knew the people of Israel would probably not treat her very kindly because she was a Moabite. The Moabite people were related to Israel. Moab's patriarch was named Ben-Ami, who was born from an incestuous relationship of his father Lot and Lot's younger daughter. During the lifetime of the patriarch Abraham, the Lord destroyed 2 cities because the people were so wicked. Those cities were Sodom and Gomorrah. So the Lord goes to Abraham and tells him that he's going to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. But Lot, Abraham's nephew, was living in the city of Sodom. So Abraham said to the Lord, "Lord, are you going to destroy the just with the wicked? Shouldn't the Lord of all the earth do what is right?" So the Lord said to Abraham, "If I find 5 people in the city that are just, I will not destroy it." But it turned out there wasn't even 5 people in the 2 cities of Sodom and Gomorrah that were just in order for the Lord to save the cities. So the Lord sent his angels. Now, when the angels made it to Sodom, they encountered Lot. Lot immediately recognized that they were angels, and he bowed himself down to them. So Lot invited the angels into his house. Now when the angels came into Lot's house to rest, then the men of the city, young and old, came to get the 2 strangers, the angels, that had just entered the city. For the men wanted to have sex with the 2 strangers they saw. So Lot goes out to the men of the city to try to stop them from trying to have sex with angels. And Lot said to them, "Don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these 2 men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." This is Genesis 19:6-8. So Lot told the men that he would rather allow his virgin daughters to sleep with them than for them to defile the angels. This is how wicked the city of Sodom and Gomorrah were. And the men of the city said, "How dare you try to judge us? We allowed you to come and live in our city. We will deal worse with you than we will deal with these 2 men." So as the men of the city are trying to get into Lot's house to take the angels grab Lot and pull him back into the house and slam the door. Then the angels caused the men of the city who were outside Lot's house to go blind. This is Genesis 19:12-17. Then the two angels said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against his people are so great that he has sent us to destroy it." So Lot was able to go and speak to two men who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry, get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But the two men thought he was joking, so they would not go. With the coming of the dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, get your wife and your two daughters and get out of here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." When Lot delayed in leaving, the two angels grabbed them by the hand and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them for Abraham's sake. As soon as they had brought them out, one of the angels said to them, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back. Don't stop anywhere in the plains. Flee to the mountains, or you will be destroyed." Lot says to the angels, "Can we at least go to the city of Zoar, which was one of the cities of the plains of Jordan?" The angel agrees with Lot, and he goes to Zoar. As they're escaping to Zoar, Lot's wife turns and looks back at the city as it's being destroyed. She is immediately judged by God because he told them not to look back, and she's instantly turned into a pillar of salt. The pillar of Lot's wife is believed to still be standing over the site of Sodom and Gomorrah. Then the Lord rained down on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone, which is sulfur and fire from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and the vegetation around the cities. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a great pillar of salt. This is Genesis 19:24 through 26. This area near the Dead Sea is believed to be where Sodom and Gomorrah once stood. We can learn a lot from Lot's wife. It teaches us when God delivers and saves us that we should not go and turn back. We should not turn back into the world, into our old ways and old ways of doing things. For when we turn back, our sin tempts us back into going into the old direction. So Lot's wife teaches us that going back will ultimately consume us. Now, I cannot continue without talking about the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is a great phenomenon. It is the very lowest place on earth at about 1,400 feet below sea level. It is a natural wonder with its unique ecosystem, breathtaking desert views, and mineral treasures that have attracted visitors for thousands of years. Because of its unique location, healing properties, genealogical and historical background, and the epic biblical events that happened around the Dead Sea, it is worth examining. We can learn today from this mystical and majestic place. It is one of the world's saltiest bodies of water with its mineral content, renowned for its therapeutic qualities even since the time of Herod the Great in around 37 to 40 BC. Even before Herod, it had 5 massive cities around it, 2 of which we have already talked about, Sodom and Gomorrah. The Jordan River is the only major water source flowing in the Dead Sea. There are also small springs under and around the sea, forming pools and quicksand pits. It has been receding gradually at an average yearly rate of 3 feet. This is causing large concern about drying up. This drop in water level is caused by evaporation under the harsh desert sun, but also because little water is now flowing into it. As a result, the water level is dropping. Strange-looking sinkholes are also appearing. Now, why is the Dead Sea called dead? Well, because fish and plant life cannot exist there. There is absolutely no life whatsoever because of its salt content. In various languages, the Dead Sea is referred to by different names, and all reflecting its characteristics. The Bible calls the Dead Sea the Salt Sea. It also is known by natives as the Sea of Lot. Now, why is the Dead Sea so salty? Well, it appears that after the great flood of Noah's Ark, this body of water was landlocked, is surrounded all around by land, from the erosion of the rocks on the land and their salt ions driven by rivers into the landlocked Dead Sea. Its extremely low elevation means that water cannot escape. Once it enters, it's there to stay. The exposure to the intense heat, the water evaporates more quickly, leading to an intense salt content. Because that once the water flows in, it can't flow out. In essence, it comes to a dead end, likened to being dead. We can draw a parallel to mankind. If we only receive in and never give out our time, our resources, our gifts, then we will also become spiritually dead. Another reason is it is so salty, it appears to be because God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, as referenced in Genesis 19:23 and Deuteronomy 29:23. All its land was hit by fire and brimstone. No grass grows on it. Like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities of Admah, Zoam, Zeboam, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. So when God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, the other three cities eventually died off as well, which increased the salt content in and around the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is also globally renowned for the therapeutic effect of the minerals in its water, and the mud have helped improve many skin conditions. Some come to the Dead Sea and smear the mud on their bodies like those pictured here. If you get into the water of the Dead Sea, you will notice that the water pushes you up. Now, why is it so easy to float on the Dead Sea and hard to sink? Well, it's because of the high concentration of salt. The salt is much denser than regular fresh water, meaning our body weight is lighter, which causes us to float. You can almost walk on water, or should I say float on water. Now they say that you should not stay in the salt water of the Dead Sea for long periods, as it can be dangerous. Never get water in your eyes or in open cuts. They say it's best not to even shave before entering the water, as it can cause burning sensations. It's best not to dunk your head under the water or drink any of the water whatsoever. So if you ever take a trip to the Holy Land, make sure you make a stop at the Dead Sea. So as Lot is escaping out of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot dwelt in the mountain with his 2 daughters, because his wife was turned into a pillar of salt. For he feared to dwell in the city of Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, and he and his 2 daughters. And the oldest daughter said to the young, "Our father is old, and there is not a man to lay with. Come, let us make our father drunk with wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve our bloodline through our father." So Lot's daughters slept with him in order to have children, and they made their father drink wine that night. The firstborn went in and laid with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she got up. And it came to pass the next day, the firstborn said to the younger, "Behold, I lay yesterday with our father. Let's get him drunk again tonight, and then you can go in and lay with him." And they did just that. The younger arose and laid with him, and he perceived not when she lay down or when she got up. So I'm curious, what did Lot say to his daughters when he noticed they became pregnant? Oh, that's just me, sorry. So both daughters had children by their father Lot. The oldest bare a son and called his name Moab, and the same is a father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she had a son and called him Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon to that day. So this is how the Moabites and the Ammonites came into existence, through an incestuous relationship with Lot, Abraham's nephew, in Genesis 19:1-38. Now the Moabites would eventually become idol worshippers of the deity Chemosh and sacrifice their babies to the deity. Later in Judges 19, Israel's judge Jephthah would go to war with the Ammonites, who was Moab, over the territory in Gilead. So Ruth was a Moabite. So when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was excited because of them, and the women of the town exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" Naomi said, "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi?" The name Naomi means pleasant or gentle, but Naomi said call her Mara, for Mara means sorrow. She said, "For the Lord has afflicted me, the Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." And so Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. And this is Ruth 1. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of good standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone whose eyes I find favor." Naomi said to her, "Go ahead, my daughter." So she went out, entered the field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. She was picking up what was left behind. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you," they answered. Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does this young woman belong to?" The overseer replied, "She is a Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi. She asked me could she glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters. She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter." So Boaz said to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." Threshing the wheat meant that she separated the grain from the chaff or straw. Now threshing is used with a board with rocks attached to it, and it would roll over the grain, separating the chaff from the kernels of grain. They would use a pitchfork to pitch the straw away, leaving only the kernel of grain left. She then carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she had been working. "The name of the man I work with today is Boaz," she said. "The Lord bless him," Naomi said to her daughter-in-law. "He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead," she added. "That man is our close relative. He is one of our guardian redeemers." A guardian redeemer is a male relative who was responsible for caring for a deceased relative's possessions, including his land, houses, livestock, and even the widow. Then Ruth said to her mother-in-law, "He even said to me, 'Stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all my grain.'" Naomi said to Ruth, "It will be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work for him, because in someone else's field you might be harmed." So Ruth stayed close to the women of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvests were finished, but she lived with her mother-in-law. This is Ruth 2. Later Naomi said, "My daughter, I must find a home for you where you will be taken care of. Now Boaz, with the women you have worked with, is related to us. Tonight he will be separating barley on the threshing floor. Wash and put on perfume and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor, but don't let him know that you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, remember the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do after that." So Ruth went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he was a little intoxicated. He went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth, approaching quietly, uncovered his feet and lay down in the middle of the night. Something startled Boaz. He turned, and there was Ruth lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am your servant, Ruth," Ruth said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are my guardian redeemer of our family." "The Lord bless you, my daughter," he replied. "This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor," because at that time Boaz was 80 years old and Ruth was just 40. "Now, my daughter, don't be afraid," he said. "I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am the guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closer in relation than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to be your guardian redeemer, that will be good. Let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning." So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, "No one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor." Boaz said, "Bring me the shawl you are wearing and hold it out." When she did, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her back. He then went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, "How did it go, my daughter?" Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her. "He gave me these 6 measures of barley. Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed." This is Ruth 3. Meanwhile, Boaz went up to the town gate and sat down there, just as his relative, the other guardian redeemer he had mentioned, came along. Boaz said, "Come over here, my friend, and sit down." He said, so he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town as witnesses and said, "Sit here," and they did so. Then he said to the guardian redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling a piece of land that belongs to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these elders seated here. If you will redeem it, do so. But if you will not, tell me, so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you and I, who is next in line." The kinsman said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "On the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the dead man's widow." This was in order to maintain the name of the dead on his property. At this, the guardian redeemer said, "Then I cannot redeem it because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself. I cannot do it." Now, in earlier times in Israel, for the redemption and transfer of property to become final, and one party took off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the method of legalizing transaction in Israel. So the guardian redeemer said to Boaz, "Buy it yourself." And Boaz removed his sandal. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon, and I have also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from among his family or from his hometown. Today you are witnesses." Then the elders and all the people at the gate said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, which were the wives of the patriarch Jacob, who together built up the nation of Israel." The elders blessed Boaz and said, "Through the offspring that the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, Jacob's son." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he lay with her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The midwife said to Naomi, "Praise be the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you very, very much, and who is better to you than 7 sons, has birthed him." Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The woman living there said, "Naomi has a son," and they named him Obed. Now Obed, he was the father of Jesse, who was the father of King David. The lineage of David goes like this. Tamar and Jacob's son Judah have Perez. Perez fathers Hezron, and Hezron fathers Ram. Then Ram was the father of Abinadab, and Abinadab was the father of Nahshon. And Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz, and Boaz was the father of Obed. Then Obed fathered Jesse, who then fathered King David. This is Ruth 4. And this is the story of Ruth, the lineage of a king. Please help me in spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ by sowing a seed. And it also assists me create better video. Thank you in advance for your generosity. Thank you for taking this walk with me through the scriptures. I pray it has been a benefit to you, and I pray you have noticed something you have never noticed before. And it inspires you to read the Word of God if you're not engaged already. As always, 2 Timothy 2:15 says, "Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." This is the word of the day, and I am Pastor Michelle Parks. Please like and share, and by all means subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you again next time. May the Lord Most High bless us all with understanding, wisdom, and revelation in the knowledge of Him. Blessings and shalom, and I'll see you next time. Have a blessed day.